So moving right along from sales codes, like I said, we want to go ahead and set up vendors. So we're going to go to the address and vendors. Okay. I did not create this vendor. This was a standard with your account. So you should see the same thing if you're setting up your account with me on another screen. This is, you should see this as well because I didn't set this up. Okay. I do set up some generics, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do those and what they are. Okay, and the first one I'm going to do, when you go through here, whoops, I should have said that. So to set up a new vendor, as always, you're going to click the blue button up here. And I know that there's a showroom, manufacturer. Let's stick to vendor. In the beginning, when you're starting out, or if you have a new studio account, let's set everybody up as a vendor or a client. Let's not designate too much more, and then we will start to kind of deal with those as we get to them, okay? So that being said, I am going to just set up some gas as a generic. You can see it's obviously trying to default. And the reason where I'm going with this is I'm going to, it might ask me, jump over here because these are generics. I am going to dive deeper and show you what all this stuff is. I'm setting up the generics first. But because this is a generic one, oops, there was none. For now, I'm going to just have it go to automobile. Okay, right. As we create additional accounts, we may have that default to another area, but these are generics. They're this specific vendor, this generic vendor for gas, will be able to be used for, you know, a bunch of different things, but I'm going to show you how I use them. Okay. So I'm going to just quickly set up these generics by going save and new. Whoops, we're going to go back to the beginning. And again, it's going to put, you're going to always want to select vendor, and I'm going to just keep typing into each one. Okay. And then I'm going to go over to parking. Okay, I'm just setting up the defaults. Again, normally I am going to make you go through and fill everything out in its entirety, but in this case, we're going to do that in that order. So when we get to those, we're going to go ahead and set them up in more detail and as actual vendors. But I'm going to continue on. Oops. I'll show you what. And we're going to go to meals and entertainment. Whoop. Meal. Oh no, it's under entertainment. I actually usually rename that to meals and entertainment, and we will. Okay, and then I'm going to do travel. Whoops. Oh, let's go to travel. And expense account is travel. Okay, and then I'm going to, oh, you know what, studio, I wanted to do studio designer, which is another default or generic that I do, but there's no software expense, and I am going to set that up. Okay, I know I passed that already, but in this case, I'm just going to do everything exactly as it arises. So I'm going to save and close this, and I do want to add to my chart of accounts because I need this account before I set it up. I could set up the studio designer vendor without setting up this account, but I would have to still create it before I can make it default. So I am going to rename some of these generics like I normally do. So I would do parking and toll. Whoops. Okay, and save. This is just what my preferences are. You don't have to use them. I do usually add a marketing, and I want to make sure that I state that advertising is not the same as marketing. I know people want to throw everything into advertising and marketing, and it's very specific. For the most part, these chart of accounts is kind of used as how we track things and study the financials throughout the year. But at the end of the year, we kind of get through cleaning them up and kind of reclassing. So there's a process in it, and like I said, I'll cover those as we kind of come across them. So I'm going to leave all these generics. I normally sometimes would probably make some of these inactive because they're not going to apply to everybody's case. And usually I start to make things inactive until they apply. That way, if I'm working with somebody or I'm training somebody, they're less likely to make a mistake with so many options. Okay, that's the thing here. You have so many options, and Studio is so customizable because not there's no two businesses that operate the same, even sister companies, just due to management. So, yeah, I'm gonna leave that there. So penalties, and I usually do penalty and late fees because the late fee is not interest. Okay. Penalties. Oops. Penalties and late fees. Okay. The reason why I do that is because of the way that certain things get treated for tax. So postage, I'll leave printing, and I'll call that printing and reproduction. Okay. And I'll show you why. Okay. And yeah, usually if somebody doesn't have payroll or I would make some of these inactive or rent. Not everybody has that just yet. What I would add is software, and I wanted to change the entertainment to meals and entertainment. Okay, and that would be 5444. So I'm going to edit that. 5444. And we're going to call it meals and entertainment because it's not just entertainment, right? And when things, we'll get into that later. Let me not jump ahead. See, and I said software expenses. Usually in the beginning, if somebody doesn't have payroll, I would override this. I actually override it. This, and I'll show you. So I would go, let's do samples expense. Okay, and software. I save a new, and I'll do, I think it's 5572. This is an expense. It's an administrative expense, and it's going to be software expense. Okay, this is for software purchases, software subscriptions, because they are a little different in subscriptions, and I like to have the option to treat software a certain way. So I like to know that. So it's a little different than everything else. Okay, and if you don't like it that way, then you don't have to put that one in there, but I'll show you. So that's usually that. Now, if we later on get payroll and employees and all that, I will add back salaries or wages or things like that. Okay, so for now, I'm going to go ahead and leave it as that because I wanted to continue setting up the vendors. The next vendor I wanted to set up was Studio Designer software, and I want to show you. So I didn't do caps. So I would go like this. For anything that's recurring, I'm going to just show you. So Studio Designer. Recurring software. So usually the reason why I do that is because I like to know everything that is recurring. So if I know to expect that every month, then I usually will do that. Or you can even just do Studio Designer recurring, and you can even just take off the software subscription. But you could just do recurring, and Studio Designer, I could do like this. You don't have to put software subscription. But then here is where I'm going to do the 1099. Okay. And you're not going to select the 1099 here because more than likely if you have a Studio account, you're paying by credit card. and therefore they wouldn't get a 1099 because they're going to get a 1099K by their merchant processing company for processing your credit card monthly. Okay, so that is how I would set that up for something recurring, because that way also it lets me know when I'm searching. I want to know, like, if I wanted to filter for just the recurring, you know, so things like that. So these are not normal. These are just my teachings. This is how I do things. This is how I teach them. So this is how I would do something that is recurring. So like if they have Apple or iTunes or any of that, I usually will put the mark of recurring. If they have an Amazon Prime subscription, I would put Amazon Prime recurring, and then I would do Amazon for the Amazon purchases. Okay, those are two different things for me. Okay, so you don't have to do it that way, but this is how I do it. And so I'm going to set up the Studio Designer. I'm going to save and new, and I'm going to keep the vendor, and I'm going to do one that's called, transfer, transfer, and I'll show you how I used all of these. And whatever naming convention you like to use, I know different people like to use different conventions for the address ID, but this is kind of why I like to do it. Every time you set them up, though, I usually will always put something in the name, because if you didn't put one here and you searched just for the address ID, it wouldn't pull up. And if you searched for the name, so you want to just add it to both. If you're going to add one, add it to both. But all the other vendors, I'm going to fill all of this out in its entirety. Okay, these are just the generics. Okay, hopefully there's no questions about the things that I've said. And then lastly, I'm going to go ahead and set up, if I've already, at this point, I've set up the things in the chart of accounts, so I know the bank vendors as well, so I would probably set those up. I'm not going to do it here on screen, but I would set one up for the owner, okay, as an individual, and for the business, and I will go ahead and set one up for the business in this case as well. So, and I'll show you. I always add the word vendor to your I'm doing it as the owner or the business. So as the owner for this business, so if it would be, blah, 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 interior design firm or whatever your business is called, and I would put the word vendor, okay, because typically I'm going to set one up also as a client, and I'll tell you why when we get there. Okay, so I always will set up the business as a client and a vendor. Okay, that's why I said to put the name. And I spelled mentorship wrong, so there's that. So let me just cut and paste to make it easier on myself. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Again, I normally fill all this out, but I'm not, because I don't want to do it on screen. And I'm going to, do I want to set up any other ones for, no. Yeah, actually, I said I would do the Chase one. So let me do Chase Bank. Okay, and normally you could have this default to where it always defaulted to the checking account or whatever account. I'm not going to do that. Usually it's bank fees if I'm paying them, so I will probably put it to bank charge for now. I wouldn't do that for all the accounts, okay? I just am doing it for the main checking. Okay. And so these are my vendors thus far. Okay, and you can see that I only do the generics in capital, this, okay, the rest of them are kind of, if I had more, then I would do them, and there's a reason why I use these as generics. I don't recommend using personal. I don't recommend creating like owner, personal as a vendor, like all these weird different things. Don't do that. Take the time to do things right. I don't lump sum anything. There's a reason why these are the only ones I use. Okay. I might do cash withdrawal if that's something that happens a lot. But this is the basic vendor setup. Notice I didn't set up any clients. I didn't want to set up any clients because I kind of want to walk through the process of doing all of this in the order that it makes sense to do so, from like opening this studio designer account and then what's next, and what do you need to get to the next setup, right? Because some of these make you set things up in order to kind of continue, right? That's kind of what happens when doing these. So I kind of want to take it step by step in the order that we're doing things. So now I've set up vendors. Now what, right? So the next thing I'm going to do, it would probably be to pull the financials and just take a look at what we're dealing with. So I'm going to do that in the next video. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, post, subscribe, share with your friends, and leave any questions or comments in the videos or in the comments below. Thank you.